everyone. Welcome to Gameplay First, where fun is second to none. My name is Tyler and I'm dressed as Stephen Hawking, both out of admiration and necessity. I have a nasty case of strep throat, you see, which has rendered me unable to speak for the next few days. While many people around the world celebrate that fact, back here, the show must go on. Even though I feel like the computer won't say the word I'm thinking of, so let's just move on. It's Halloween, and as we all know, Halloween is the night when all the monsters come out to haunt and terrify the living. Well, unless you believe Buffyverse lore. But this year, I'll also be using it as a retrospective on some of the baddest, scariest mothers known throughout gaming. Yes, boss fights. Some of them are haunting and frightful, while others are the climax of a fantastic adventure. At any rate, tonight, I'll be counting them down. So grab your blanket and get ready to scream with fight. This is the top 10 best boss battles. Before starting the list, I'll let you in on my criteria. First and foremost was the fight memorable. Next up, was it challenging? I can also only have one fight per franchise and I must have played the game for it to make the list. So, without further ado, let's light the fuse on this sucker. Why do I feel like Stephen Hawking has actually said that at one point? As always, first up are honorable mentions. Hogger from World of Warcraft. I'm not talking about Hogger in the Stockade, either. I'm talking about classic, 40-gnome raid party Hogger. Hogger is an honorable mention because while not technically a boss, Hogger gets an honorable mention slot because the concept of using him as a boss is pretty funny. I mean, you have to throw so many gnomes at him just to kill him. I don't hate gnomes, by the way, but I do find the idea of an orc throwing gnomes at Hogger to kill him pretty funny. Honorable mention too is every Colossi from Shadow of the Colossus. From what I've seen of this game, it's basically 90% boss fights and the fights are just amazing. It's only an honorable mention because I haven't had the opportunity to play this game, but after seeing some of these fights, I can tell you it's on my personal list of games I must play as soon as possible. Number 10. The Giant Spider from Limbo. Okay. Hang on a second. For my money, yes, this is a boss battle, but it's very original in how it's carried out over a long period of time. Also, the main character doesn't actually do anything to the spider, for the most part, and it's so satisfying to finally use its body as a means to continue the game. Limbo is, overall, a game with a very distinct atmosphere, and the art style does a lot to emphasize the fear and danger surrounding this monstrosity. Because of this, there's a lot of satisfaction when you finally defeat it, and for that, I think it deserves a slot on this list. Number 9. Lil Slugger from Super Meat Boy. Again, a very unique boss battle in that you don't actually attack the boss. You do what Meat Boy does best, run. It's no picnic doing all that running, either. The whole time, you're avoiding the boss, area hazards, spinning saw blades and all to a rock soundtrack that would get a seal of approval from Gene Simmons himself. That is what sticks this fight soundly at number 9. The music. The Ballad of Lil Slugger is absolutely kick-ass fantastic. In fact, the whole soundtrack to Super Meat Boy is just phenomenal, and if you're a fan of rock or metal, I'd recommend that you check it out. Number 8. The Psycho Blaster Death Tank from Psychonauts. Now we're getting into the legitimate battles. The Psycho Blaster Death Tank is an especially interesting fight because, unlike the game's real final boss, it truly requires you to use everything you've learned throughout the game to win. Every ability, power and skill you unlock will be used in this fight, and if you hope to survive, you'd better be ready. There's also a level of self-satisfaction in defeating this boss that has to do with the story, but I won't ruin it by going into it. Suffice to say that it feels really good to finally beat up on the brain inside that tank. Number 7. The Enderdragon from Minecraft. Say what you will about Minecraft, but it truly does have everything, including a boss fight that can accommodate anywhere from 1 to 50 people. Granted, the more people you have, the easier it is, supposedly. But I've not had much more fun in a boss fight than I did coordinating this fight with my friends. Who is going to keep the Enderman at bay? Who is going to be in charge of taking out the crystals that heal the dragon as it flies around? Who is going to be in charge of pulling the dragon's fire while someone else takes out the crystals? This fight requires teamwork unless you're an amazingly skilled player, or you're in create mode. Cheater. At any rate, the Enderdragon is a fantastic multiplayer fight, and I did enjoy trying to decipher the poem at the end. Number 6. Final Bowser from Super Mario Galaxy. Oh, come on now. You knew there was a Bowser fight coming. I chose Final Bowser from Galaxy 1 because the fight is, well, just look at the circumstances. Mario fighting Bowser. Okay, pretty standard. On tiny, floating rocks in space. Okay, that's new. Surrounding a collapsing star. Ha! While an epic choir sings to the orchestral backing of a fight to decide the fate of the universe itself. That's new territory for Mario. The fight is pretty standard for the game, but the circumstances, the fate of not only the Mushroom Kingdom or Princess Peach, but the entire universe is pretty big. Not to mention the whole part where you knock Bowser into a collapsing star and he still comes back. Oh well. At the end of the day, Bowser is like a bad rash, but this fight is anything but. Number 5. Meta Ridley from Metroid Prime. The whole game we knew this goddamn fight was coming. We knew Ridley was coming for us. We knew we were going to have to kick his ass in first person. We just didn't know it was going to be this good. For those of us deeply ingrained in Metroid's story, we know that Ridley is the bastard that killed Samus' parents. She has a deep-seated hatred and fear of him, and after spending several hours essentially in her mind as she completes her mission, I feel like I began to understand her character better. Well, her true character. Not her whiny, I need a daddy character in Other M, which has been widely dismissed as non-canon by the fan community. But I won't go into that. The fight with Meta Ridley was both memorable and had an emotional attachment to it. The satisfaction of finally blasting that winged sack of crap out of the sky was fantastic, but knowing that something even more evil was lurking below was always in the back of my mind. The fight with the Metroid Prime was good, but it was missing the emotional aspect that the Meta Ridley fight had. Number 4. Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time. I'll admit that this fight is partially on here out of peer pressure, but when it comes to memorable, challenging boss fights, Ganondorf is definitely on top. I didn't play Ocarina as a kid, so I don't have the luxury of saying how this fight was my childhood or anything, but I did play it recently, and I have to say, in all honesty, the fight and the game stand the test of time. Ocarina never gets old. It's truly timeless, and the fight with Ganondorf is definitely one for the ages. It's built up through the entire game that Ganondorf is this unbelievably evil, powerful wizard who must be stopped. Hell, on your way up to the fight, the dude is playing an organ. Who does he think he is? The Phantom of the freaking opera? At any rate, this fight was fantastic and definitely deserves a spot on this list. Number 3. Gruntilda from Banjo-Kazooie. This bitch is going down. That is the thought that will involuntarily enter your head when you enter the arena to take down this wordy hag. Through the events of the game, Grunty kidnaps Banjo's sister, attempts to steal her beauty, kidnaps and captures these, harmless Genjos, throws monsters, tricks and traps at you, forces you to compete in a life or death quiz show, and taunts you all the way. By the end of the game, you're so ready to kick this witch's ass that you can't help but feel satisfied when you see her pinned under that rock, just knowing she's going to come back for the sequel and you'll get to kick her ass all over again. It's not a burden to beat the snot out of Grunty. After all the crap she pulled, it's a privilege. The Wicked Witch of Spiral Mountain's final boss fight is a 5-stage battle that requires you to use nearly every single skill you've learned along the way. The fight is difficult, unforgiving and challenging as hell. But when you finally beat her, when you finally let loose the Genjos of war, it's a feeling of satisfaction like no other. Gruntilda, a pleasure to kick your warty butt. Again and again and again. Number 2, Wheatley from Portal 2. This fight rocks. I should only have to say one word here for you to understand why. But in addition, this is Wheatley here. This little guy was our only friend saved for the companion cube throughout the entire series. So, our only friend who we could have a two-sided conversation with. Actually, in retrospect, the companion cube is the perfect friend for Chell. At any rate, Wheatley was my favorite new character of 2011. He was funny, he was adorably naive, and he was voiced by Stephen Merchant. That is just a trifecta of win. But midway through the game, he's turned against us. So, not only do I have to fight this character who I genuinely like, but in the end, I have to banish him to space, which, while epic, kind of sucks. I shouldn't even have to mention the personality core you have to use to distract him. Rick, the adventure core is awesome, the fact sphere is hilarious, and the space sphere? Well, he's the space sphere. He wins in the end. Actually, if you think about it, at the end of the game the space sphere is the only one who truly wins. Chell is basically alone in an unforgiving world, Wheatley is stuck in space, GLaDOS is stuck testing with robots, and in the end the only one who is really happy with the outcome is the space sphere. Wow. That's really depressing. Let's move on to number 1. And the number 1 boss fight is the Great Mighty Poo from Conker's Bad Fur Day. Where on earth do I begin with this guy? The first time I played this game all the way through, I was 18. After fighting this guy, if he were the final boss of the game, I would have been satisfied. Not only is it a challenge, albeit in somewhat of a frustrating way, not only is it memorable as hell, but the guy sings a song. No, not a song. An opera. A fucking opera. There's no need for this boss to telegraph his attacks. He sings an opera to tell you what he's going to do. And this song is catchy as hell. The worst part is that you cannot sing this song in public under any circumstances. Someone is going to get offended. But it's so memorable, so funny, and just so fantastic. You fight this, what would you call it, Chris?
A shit demon!
That's right. You fight this shit demon by throwing toilet paper into his opened mouth as he sings, then you finish him off by flushing him down the toilet. And then, Conker says the absolute perfect line to end the fight.
Now that's what I call a bowel movement.
Now that's what I call a bowel movement. I'm sorry, but it doesn't get much better than that for my money, folks. Get pissy about this one if you want, but this is my favorite boss fight of all time. Thank goodness this game has a level select because it does not get old. The Great Mighty Poo. This is one fight that doesn't stink. So, there you have it. My take on the top 10 bosses of all time. I'd like to apologize again for my lack of vocal ability and energy right now, but my tonsils are the size of ripe strawberries at the moment, so you'll have to excuse me. At any rate, as per usual, if you disagreed with this list, good for you. My show. My opinion. For gameplay first, this is Tyler signing off. Now if you'll excuse me, I've been on antibiotics, so I'm off quarantine. And you know what that means. Pity candy. If you catch my drift. Happy Halloween, everyone.